right, we're going to talk about some things that happen in relationships around the major area of communication. Now, I've done some CDs. We don't call them CDs anymore. These are called YouTube clips and Instagram clips and TikTok shorts and all of that. We used to call them CDs. Holy smokes. Anyway, back to what I want to talk about. The common communication mistakes. We've done a ton of work on communication. We've got some really good information on how to communicate in the batch of YouTube clips and Instagram shorts down below in the reels. But this one is going to specifically cover 5 of the most common mistakes made in couples around communication. These mistakes are so disruptive that I literally can't think of anything that harms a relationship more than these 5 things. Okay? So I'm going to run through them. I'm going to try to give you a little bit of an example of each one of them so that you can understand it completely. Okay? So the number one disruptor in relationships, I would say, are mistakes in communication, misunderstandings, running one direction when your partner's talking about a whole different direction, and it just gets in the way. So the very first mistake, the number one of these 5, and I did these as close to in order as I could, judging it only on the anecdotal evidence that I bring up from my own personal clientele of working with clients. These are the 5 most common mistakes that I have happen in front of me in my office that causes a ton of damage, wreaks havoc on relationship, and it literally sends people off towards divorce when divorce often isn't even necessary. It's because the couple will not humble themselves to a point of just owning that they're part of the problem because of how they communicate, or the couple together collectively can't quite unflood themselves in order to really kind of pause and communicate correctly to make sure that they're on the right path. Now, what's interesting is when couples get in enough pain, like when it's right down to the wire and they're in enough pain, that's when they'll often become super humble and start to listen and really effectively communicate. I'd like to challenge all of you to not have to be in pain to be humble, not have to be in pain to be the person that just loves to gather information from their lover. And that's my challenge to you. Like, assignment number 1, become humble in a way that you want to gather information from your partner. You don't want to just be heard, you want to understand them. Okay? So mistake number 1. It seems that a lot of us, a whole bunch of us, do not quite understand the difference between strongly held beliefs or opinions and actual facts. So people will share their strongly held belief or their opinion as if it's a fact, and then be incredulous when the other person has a different idea or a different belief. I want to share with you that it's just because it's your truth, it doesn't equal fact. Just because you believe strongly that something's true doesn't mean everyone else has to believe it. Now, I know at a surface level, everyone understands this, but when you're communicating with your spouse and your spouse says, "You never help around the house," and the spouse responds with a, "Yes, I do. I helped out twice last week and once yesterday," and so they're both arguing this opinion. They're not even talking about the truth. The only fact in there is that there is chores around the house. That's a fact. Who does more, who does less, who did some yesterday, who does anything, and who does nothing is all subjective, and you can argue that to the death. And so let's say that part of what we want to do as humans is stop thinking through the lens of my truth has to be your truth. In fact, I wished we'd get rid of that phrase, "Well, that's my truth. I'm speaking my truth." It almost drives me a little crazy when someone says, "I'm speaking my truth." It's almost like they're saying that they've got a corner on truth and their truth is the cornerstone and anybody else's truth doesn't really matter. What we ought to say is, this is my opinion, my strongly held belief, and I want to check in with you on it. So facts are independent of human beings. Facts are just simply facts. Let's say you and I are watching a person ride down the street over there on a mountain bike. The person is on a mountain bike, they have a red tank top, green shorts, sandals, no helmet, okay? And let's say that it's 110 degrees outside. All right, so my opinion might be, doesn't he have a job? And it's 110 degrees. It's way, 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 way too hot to ride a mountain bike. And he's not wearing a helmet. That's illegal or wrong. That's unethical. He's stupid. And I can have all of those thoughts run through my head. And for me, those are strongly held beliefs. Those are opinions. Now, you might look out there and think, oh, my word, the freedom that guy has. No helmet, no shoes, just sandals. Got his tank top on. So comfortable. I envy him. He doesn't have a care in the world. See, both of us are sharing a very different set of beliefs about the mountain bike rider, and we both are exactly correct from our point of view. Now, when we get to know each other and this person shares their point of view with me, and I take it in, I know them better because I understand how they look at that mountain bike rider at 110 degrees with no helmet and no shoes. They also know me better. See, that's the romance of communication, getting to know each other a little bit better. Not arguing over the ethics of a helmet or arguing over whether it's too hot or just right. That's what couples do, is they get caught up in thinking that their facts or that their strongly held beliefs are also facts. And it gets in the way. All right, so you get what I mean. Make sure you understand that facts are independent of all of us. Gravity is a fact. Now, aerodynamics means that gravity allows airplanes to fly, and it pulls rocks to the ground if we throw them off the Empire State Building. But the idea, we still have, all of us have to honor gravity. Let's just say that couples need to be really clear with what is a fact and what is a strongly held belief. And just remember, the stronger you hold a belief doesn't make it more true, okay? It's just your belief. Now, you get to have a boundary with your belief, but you don't get to make me believe your strongly held opinions. That's how we are like connecting together, as being different and having differences and enjoying explaining those differences. Mistake number 2. This one is almost as noxious to communication as mistake number 1. Mistake number 2 is when a person thinks that they can carry both sides of the conversation. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone that tells you how you think and how you feel, and then tells you how they think and how they feel? It's like this. It's like, you never help around the house. You are so lazy. You don't even care about me, and you don't care about the kids, and you don't make enough money, and all of that put together means that you just are not a good husband for me. I just got told in all different ways everything about me. What am I going to do with that? All I can do is argue back. I am too a good husband. I make plenty of money. You spend too much money. You never even think about what you're spending it on. You just like throw money, or you hit one click on Amazon nonstop. You're never not hitting one click. And besides that, you don't even help around. You don't do anything around the house. All you do is sit around. You don't do anything that I can tell. You don't do anything. Even the kids are against you. See, I'm telling my partner now how they think and how they feel. So if you think you can carry both sides of conversation by saying, here's how I feel and here's how you feel, you're doing it wrong. See, carrying both sides of the conversation means you're no longer seeking knowledge from your partner. There's no romance in that. Okay, all the romance that you can have inside of a relationship is about seeking new data, new information from the person you're with. Do you remember when you first got together? You maybe were acquaintances, maybe even strangers, and you start getting to know each other, and you ask lots of questions, and you listen intently, and you look into each other's eyes, and you can't wait to get the next bit of data to see if you're similar to each other, if you are compatible. Well, what if you could do that throughout your whole life? Got news for you, you can. If you judge another person and tell them what they're thinking, you're not going to get to know them better. If you believe that a person's actions are all you need to watch, you don't need to hear from them, you're missing a big part of how they communicate. We do communicate through our actions, but our actions can be misunderstood as easy as our verbiage can be misunderstood. What you really want is me speaking and acting congruently. Remembering that all conversations that were had minutes, days, weeks, decades, years ago, all conversations we've had are in that context of that conversation. And every bit of data that I've gathered going forward, I change just a little bit. So every couple of minutes, I might have a new way of looking at the world, and I might have a new way of processing information. I might have new data that came in that changed my mind. And now I meet with couples that explain things to each other, and the other person says, I agree with you, I was wrong. And they still get judged as if they aren't agreeing, because people don't let other people change. So I always say, well, what if I changed 3 hours ago? What if 3 hours ago I became different because I learned something from you? Do I not get credit for that? Is there not an atonement or a manner of being forgiven for what I used to believe, even if it was 3 minutes ago, to what I now believe? Can we have an opportunity to grow and change together? Does that make sense? So remember that just because I said some belief or I said something about a certain topic yesterday doesn't mean that today you can say that that's who I still am. You have to ask me. So any judgment that you have needs to become a question for your partner if you want to do this one right. And so mistake number one, if we remember, it was not understanding that, and we can put this up on the board behind us, not understanding the difference between opinions and facts. Opinions are my strongly held beliefs. Facts are actual facts that are independent of us. They're true no matter what. Number two mistake, carrying both sides of the conversation, not allowing your partner to participate in the conversation because you tell them how they feel, and then you tell them how you feel. You don't let them tell you how they feel. You judge them. Number three, mistake number three, this is another important one. Mistake number three is the listener is listening only to respond, not to understand. And the speaker goes on a tangent and gives way too much information on way too many topics. So if the speaker is just throwing out 10 different topics that they have an issue with or that they want you to understand, and the listener's just holding their breath, waiting for you to pause so they can jump in. I actually have people, I know they're not listening, they're waiting till I pause so they can jump in and pounce and tell me everything that I'm wrong about. So I want you to understand that mistake number three is listening to respond, not listening to understand, and tangents. The speaker is going on a tangent, throwing out tons of information that can't be followed because there's too many topics. Okay, so the antidote to number three is listeners just listen to understand, not to influence or respond. Speaker, one topic at a time, clear, direct, concise. Allow for the listener to mirror back what they've heard until they understand you. You can see how most people don't do that. The mistake they make is they are just trying to out-influence the other one, out-argue the other one, see who can wear the other one down rather than really get to know each other at a deeper level. Mistake number four. Now, this one's a fun one. Remember, people have different styles of communication. One person might think out loud. So I'm a think out loud person. As I speak, I self-correct. And so throughout what I'm describing, I might adjust it a little bit as I go because I have to hear how it sounds. I have to watch your facial expressions and hear you mirror back to me what you hear. And then I fix things until you understand me. So that's one. That's the think out loud person. Then there's the think internally person, process silently, and then say it once correctly. When I first met my wife, I didn't understand this, and neither did she. I would think out loud, and by the time I got to the end of the conversation, she would understand me, but she'd be confused at all the stuff that I said that didn't add up to that at the end. And I would say, well, I just say things, and then as you mirror it back to me, I fix a little bit, as I hear myself say certain things, I fix it a little bit. So by the time I'm at the end point where you hear the final conclusion, that's who I am. And she thought that was crazy, because what she would do is be quiet, and I'd be wondering, why isn't she saying anything? Like, how long do I have to sit here in silence while she's thinking? And then she would finally say something, but it would be on point. It'd be true about her. It would be, it would have all her facts and her opinions lined out, and she would just say it. And then I'd mirror back what I heard, and she'd say, I got it. We're just different. I would be a little bit impatient because I wasn't sure if she was just ignoring me. And what it turns out is she was processing to get it right and then say it once. She would think, well, what was all that stuff at the beginning? Were you lying? Were you just making stuff up as you went? I go, no, that's how I think. I think out loud. So once we understood each other, we get along fine. I give her plenty of time to quietly ponder and then speak, and she lets me kind of ramble through it until the end where everything's fixed and correct. So understand that if you communicate different like that, the two types, when they understand each other, can talk to each other and they can understand each other, but it can be confusing before they understand, and they can misunderstand each other because they're so different in how they talk. Mistake number 5. Once you're flooded, stop communicating. You can't process information once your heart rate's up around 98 to 100 beats a minute. Somewhere in there, the front brain gets too flooded to process things correctly. Everything's a little bit warped, and you're just arguing now. And basically, the most manipulative one at the time, or the most angry one at the time, will win, which isn't really a true representation of whether the problem was solved. And so couples that continue to try to communicate when they get flooded can't really process the information that well. They can't really, they just generally turn to just trying to control the other one because they're just flooded. So mistake number 5 on the board back there. And I think, did we give the assignment for mistake number 4? Mistake number 4 is some people communicate. Let's say, how do you communicate? Do you think out loud, or do you think quietly and then say it perfect once? And then number 5 assignment, or number 5 way to look at it is what kind of timeout would work for you to get unflooded? I would say a 2-minute timeout when you first get flooded is plenty. So take a 2-minute timeout, get yourself unflooded. Remember, during the timeout, don't sit there and think about how wrong your partner is. During the 2-minute timeout, just breathe, relax, get your heart rate down, get yourself ready to go back and really listen. Get yourself in the mood to really go find out how the other person's processing information. And you'll never lose by letting go of the rope in a tug of war. In a tug of war with your partner, if you let go of the rope, you can't fight. Okay, so just go back and listen, really listen until you understand, and then take a turn. So to do this correct, we've talked about this before, you listen to understand, and then you mirror back and respond to the points presented, okay? You speak clearly about the result that you want, and you take turns with each other until a point is made by both speaker and listener. So I want you to say that again. To do it correct, you both need to listen to understand each other. You both need to mirror back what you've heard from the other one until you both are understood. You need to speak clearly about one result that you want. What is the result that you want from this conversation? And then take turns with each other until the entire point is made by both of you, and the speaker and the listener both understand each other. Then you can see where you stand firmly together and you agree. And then on the points of disagreement, you might need to negotiate agreements about. And those agreements can be short-term, where you check back in 3 days and see if you like the agreement, or they can be eternal, where you make agreements that last forever. Whatever you want to do is fine. But the most important thing is really take one topic at a time and really deep dive into the result that you want inside of that topic. If I know the result that I want, then there's a lot of times the journey towards the result won't matter near as much, because a lot of different ways a couple can get to the same result. So try to agree on the result that you want. You want to be understood. Maybe both of you want to be understood. That's romantic. Maybe you want to decide how many chores you're going to each take when you divide up labor in the home. So that's the result you want, is to know who's going to do what. And so you just get there. Whatever it is, you can do that if you communicate well, and if you go through the romantic notion that getting to know each other minute by minute, day by day, year by year, never thinking you know so much about each other that you don't need to talk, you will be a healthier couple, more romantic couple, a juicier, passionate, more extreme couple, and you'll be one of those couples that are role models for the rest of us. So there you have it. Just some ideas on mistakes people make in communication. We'll talk to you again and next episode.